Hello, everyone. Hi, it's Coach Ulysses. I'm starting video 4 today, and I hope you've been able to get something out of this. I hope you've been enjoying the videos that we've been doing, and you're starting to really like and develop an appetite for this game. In my humble opinion, I think it's the greatest game that was ever created. So let's get started. Today, we're going to work on the queen. And the bishops. So we'll start with the queen first. All right. Queen is the most powerful chess piece in the game of chess. It commands a lot of squares. I mean, it's a very strong piece and it can move the full length of the board up and down, side to side, and diagonal. And I'm going to show you. If you look at this queen here on d5 in the center of the board, it is it has a great influence over all of the squares, the diagonal square of A8 all the way to H1 has control over this diagonal G8 to A2, has control over this entire fifth rank and this entire D file, the entire D file. So the queen can move the full length of the board, provided that it's not blocked by one of its pieces or an opponent's piece. Okay, so let's take a look. This queen can move to A8. I can move this, I will move this queen now to H1. See, full length of the board diagonally. I can move vertical to H8. I can even 1, 2, 3, 4 move. If I just want to move four squares diagonally, I could do that. Any direction, full length of the board. I can move one at a time if I want. Just like the king. I could move it like the king if I wanted. And that's how the queen moves. It's very fast. Controls a lot of squares. Okay. Now I will show you the squares that it controls by placing a piece that it can capture that's in its line of fire. Okay. So if this rook was here, right, and if it was my turn, I can go over and capture that rook if I want to. Okay. There was a rook here on G6. I could go over and capture that rook. Bishop on H4. Let's put a knight over here. Put a pawn here. And I'm only doing this for the sake of you being able to see how much power this piece has. So where my queen is in the center of the board, it can capture any one of these pieces. I could capture the rook here, bishop, back, pick up the bishop here. I can capture the pawn that's on c2. I can capture the knight that was on e7. Okay. The same way it captures is the same way that it can protect its own pieces. Let me show you. Let's say I had a rook here. Now, this queen is protecting this rook, right? This queen is protecting this rook. This queen is also protecting this knight here, also protecting the knight. This queen is protecting the bishop. Right? Look at all the pieces that this queen is protecting right now. Amazing, right? Even if I had, it's protecting every last one of these pieces because it can go in all these different directions. That's why the queen is the most powerful piece. And you want to bring your queen out in the middle game. Don't want to bring your queen out too early in the game because it can get trapped. Your opponent can trap your queen. So you want to get your queen in the game, but it has to be in the middle game. Okay, and that's the safest way to do that. Okay, so for instance, let's say if I had a queen here. Let's say this was your queen, and you decided to take my pawn on e5. Well, now my queen can just take your queen. See that? Let's say this queen was here. Let's say your queen decided to take my rook. Now I have a choice. My queen can come over, capture your queen, or, as you remembered in the previous video, you could use your rook to capture queen. But I would take it with my queen here for the purpose of just showing you. Right? So now you understand, you have an idea of how powerful the queen is. Okay, let's go to the bishops. When you play chess, you'll have two bishops, just like you have two rooks, two knights. Okay. All right. Now, you will notice very quickly that one bishop is on one color and another bishop's on another color, okay? This is my dark squared bishop. I can capture any one of my opponent's pieces that land on a dark colored square, okay? This is my light squared bishop. I can capture any piece of my opponent that lands on the light colored squares, okay? So let's say I moved my light squared bishop, and it can only travel on the light squares. This bishop can only travel on the light squares. This bishop can only travel on the dark squares. Same with yours. This bishop can only travel on the light colored squares throughout the entire game. And this bishop can only travel on the dark colored squares throughout the entire game. They will never be on the same color during the game. There's only one strange exception, and that is if you decided to promote your pawn to a bishop, and then whatever square that bishop landed on, then if you had a light squared bishop already in the game, and you wanted another one, then you would have two bishops on the same square. That is extremely rare. I've been playing chess for over 30 years. I've never seen it before. Because why go for a bishop when you can promote to a queen and have the same power as a bishop and a rook in one piece, right? So there's a lot of common sense that's packed into chess. It's common sense game. It really is. Okay. So moving on. Okay. So let's say I used my bishop here and I moved to a6. And now look at your bishop. Now it's your turn. And when you're playing chess, you're looking where your opponent places his or her pieces. Because if those pieces are unprotected, those are the pieces that you want. You want to go after unprotected pieces. We refer to them in chess as hanging pieces. Hanging pieces. They're unprotected. If it's free, it should be for you, right? And if it's free, it should be for me, right? Okay. So your turn lines up on the same diagonal as your bishop. So your bishop can come over and say bye bye and capture that piece and put it out of the game. Okay. If I made the same silly mistake, there's nothing protecting that bishop. And it lines up directly in the line of fire of your bishop. So by all means, capture that piece. Okay. I'll move the bishops back. Bishops work well when a lot of pieces have come off the board, and they work well long range attacking. They don't work that great when there's a lot of pieces on the board and they have pawns in front of them and they become cramped. So bishops become very active if you open up lanes for them. A lot of times at chess, you have, well, always with the bishops, you have to open up a lane for them so that they can get out and work for you. All right? So let's say we'll use your bishop, your two bishops. Let's say I had a rook here. Okay, I'll put a king on the board, right? Let's say I had two pawns here, protected my king. And now, for the sake of making this look like a real game and not just a demonstration, let's say I decided to move this rook to f5. So now in chess, it's your turn and you are looking at the board and you're trying to find out, did your opponent move any of his or her pieces in the direct line of fire of yours? And that's the first thing you're looking for. You're looking for those hanging pieces. If you look at this example, your light squared bishop has control over that diagonal that this rook finds itself on. So if I pushed my rook to f5, evidently I didn't see your bishop there, but you have your every right to come and capture that rook. So if you want to say to your opponent, "Oh, sorry about that, pal, but it's got to go," by all means, by Coach Ulysses, take that rook. Rook has a value of 5. All the pieces have a value. I'll get there. Okay. And now you just put me in check. See that? All right. Now, what is check? Check is when your king is in danger of being captured. Kings never come off the board, but you have to show that the king is in danger of being captured. Okay. So in this example, I would have to move my king out of check before I do anything else. And that's why it's very important for you to say to your opponent, check, so that they know that they're in check and they won't continue making other moves and they have their king in check for like the last 3 or 4 moves. I see it happen all the time with beginners. So I want you to know that. I want you to verbally say to your opponent, when you put your opponent's king in check, check. So that lets me know whatever plan I had, even if I had a plan to put you in checkmate right now, I have to abandon that plan and protect my king first. So I could move my king over 1 square, and now I am no longer on the square that the bishop at f5 is controlling. I'm out of check. My king is safe now. Now it would be my opponent's turn again. Okay? All right. Or I could have moved here to c1, and I'm out of check. Okay? There's a little bit of geometry in well, there's a lot of geometry in chess. It's about looking at that board, looking at the diagonals, looking at how your pieces move, and in the directions that your pieces move. If your opponent's pieces fall on those squares, then you have every right to go after and attack that piece. Right? Show you. Let's say this is your bishop. You have a pawn here. What do you think is happening here? What would you say? You can't capture your own piece, so you would have to say that this is your pawn being protected by your bishop, right? So if I had a rook here and I made a silly move and came over here and tried to capture this pawn, I just lost a rook, a heavy piece, because you just can come down and take my piece off the board, right? Okay. That's it for today. Next week, we're going to spend the entire time going over the knights because the knights are they can be a little tricky, okay? They're the only piece that jumps over other pieces, and we'll look at the knights next week, okay? So I hope you have a good night and be well, be safe. Bye.